for Nadia and for Mima. That was an amazing insight. So now for an expert panel here to tell us how technology is making it easier and cheaper to connect with customers. With hundreds of millions of customers between them, La Moda, Stitch Fix, and StockX are revolutionizing the shopping experience around the world. You'll also be able to get them on the web app, slido.com, if you would like to bring some questions to this expert panel. In conversations with Alice-Azania, Jarvis of Elle Magazine, please welcome on stage Florian Jansen of La Moda, Cathy Polinsky of Stitch Fix, Josh Luber of StockX, and Jill Layfield of Tamara Mellon. Thank you.
Not us.
No. So hello Web Summit. It's fantastic to be here on the final day of what has been a truly incredible event. And I'm thrilled to be joined by such a varied and accomplished group of panelists right here. I wonder if we could start with a few introductions. Could you each tell us a little bit about yourselves and what it is you do? Florian, you go first.
Yeah, hi, I'm Florian. I'm a CEO and co-founder of La Moda, fashion tech platform connecting more than 2,000 brands with 1 million daily users. And I think what's very interesting and unique to share with you is our experience to work with brands beyond B2C. We're offering B2B services, solving all kinds of problems for brands beyond selling to our consumers.
Great. Hi, I'm Cathy Polinsky. I'm the CTO of Stitch Fix. We're a US-based online personal styling service. At Stitch Fix, you fill out a detailed style profile, information about what your interests are, and you get connected with a personal stylist who hand curates a box just for you. You try everything on at home, you keep the things you like, you send back the rest, and we get better and better as you share more information about what you like and didn't like. We're currently US only. We've got over 2.7 million active clients, and we're launching in UK next year.
My name's Josh. I'm the CEO and co-founder of StockX. StockX is today the largest marketplace in the world for authentic sneakers and streetwear. We also sell handbags, watches, and a lot of other products. But the reason that it's grown this fast is that StockX is an actual stock market. So it's a consumer goods marketplace, think eBay, that connects buyers and sellers the same way the stock market works. So it's kind of like if you took Amazon and the New York Stock Exchange, but they were both, bigger and more efficient.
Hello, my name's Jill Layfield. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tamara Mellon. We are a direct-to-consumer women's luxury footwear brand.
So today we're going to be talking about the modern retailer and the death of clothing. Not, I'm told, a call for us all to become nudists, but rather a look at how our spending patterns are changing. In 1977, clothing accounted for 6.2% of US household spending. Now it's half that. What's going on? Are we buying less? Florian, perhaps you can start us off here.
First of all, I think it's important to mention it's a relative decrease compared to all other expenses. And I think the main reason is that consumers got interested in other things. They buy a lot more experiences, like travel, etc. They buy a lot more technology, which is, I think, great for most of us as well. And so less of fashion as a share. The second reason is that clothing became much more universal. So, I mean, you can wear your jeans and t-shirt at work now, which in the past was more complicated. And I think the third main reason is that the price points dropped massively with the appearance of fast fashion and the offshoring of production. So while prices, I think, since 1992 increased generally by 57%, I think fashion dropped by 8%. So there's a massive reduction in average item prices.
So several factors at play there. Another thing to throw into the mix, we hear a lot of talk about the death of the traditional store. E-commerce only accounted for 13% of US retail last year, but it is the biggest driver of growth. Is the traditional store dead? Jill, I want to call on you here because you are actually opening your first bricks and mortar store today. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, it's unnerving to be here today and be taking such a big step for what has been, for the last 2 years, a digital-only e-commerce business. But yes, we're opening a store today. We're very excited. The reality is our customer is still shopping offline. Unfortunately, though, what she's finding, we think, is a very outdated retail experience. And so we've taken the last year to study what we think is broken in the way she's buying shoes offline and hopefully have solved some real problems and innovated. We think that the best brands are going to do something extraordinary for the consumer offline, and we hope we're one of them.
Where's your store at?
It's in Pacific Palisades in LA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're
Cathy.
digital only, and I think what we see is that traditional stores just don't work for clients. They don't want to go to the store. They don't have time to go to the store. But the real problem is that trying to find something online is a really difficult process. You can't see how a pair of jeans is going to look on you. You can't feel the fabric. And so I think that whether it's traditional, well, it's got to not be traditional, I think is the case. Whether it's brick and mortars or digital, we have to have a different experience for apparel than you would have for other categories.
You mentioned the word experience there, and Florian also mentioned it. I'd like to sort of focus in on that, because we do hear a lot of talk about how millennials want to spend on experiences rather than possessions. How does Stitch Fix address that? How do you work that in to use to your advantage?
Stitch Fix is an experience. You are connecting with a stylist who can help educate you, get to know you, and you're building a great relationship with your stylist. We have people sharing information with their stylist before they'll share it with anybody else when they get pregnant or when they lost weight or when they're starting a new job. And so that experience really gives you this surprise and delight factor when you get a fix. People say it's like getting Christmas on my doorstep. My stylist knows me better than my spouse or my best friend. And people really love that, and it's created this really viral effect.
And Josh, you also bring in an element of experience with your kind of stock market model. It almost gamifies the shopping experience. How important is that to your consumer?
Well, what's interesting is that you know, a lot of the brands talk about community, and we have the opposite of that. So StockX is completely anonymous. You don't know who's on the other end of that transaction, and that's a good thing. It makes it more efficient, right? The gamification is people wanting to make money, buy and sell products the same way they buy and sell assets, right? All the products that we sell are assets. These are commodities. Sneakers, watches, handbags. This is gold, you know, stocks, bonds, etc. Right? But for us, and not unlike these guys, we're now trying to think about what does it look like in real life. Retail stores may be dying, but you know what's not going away is land. We're still going to have all this place out there for brands to use to create brand experiences. So we'll probably open up a store, but we don't even want to call it a store because you probably won't sell anything there, right? But there'll be some brand experience that happens there, and it may be part of that gamification. It may be part of that, how do you interact with the data, with the stock market, with whatever's going on. But those experiences are way better to touch your customer than being an online business place.
You mentioned community there. How you have company open days where you actually invite your customers round. Does that foster a sense of community?
So we're based in Detroit, Michigan, United States of America, and we get requests all the time for people to come and check out the office, the operations facility. We authenticate every pair of sneakers, so 20,000 pairs of sneakers will pass through our operations facility in a day. Everything that comes in the morning goes out that evening. And so we had so many people asking to come visit, we created StockX Day. And we opened it up, and we had room for 150 spots, because that's how big the auditorium was. So we had people apply to attend. And apply was just tell us why you want to come. Email us, tell us why you want to come. There were over 5,000 people that applied for 150 spots. So now we've been doing this globally around the world. I've done 2 in Detroit, 1 in London 3 weeks ago, 1 in New York next week, and it's just a way to be closer to our customers.
And in terms of becoming closer to your customers, how important do we think it is to have a purpose beyond profit? Jill, you've done a lot of work sort of advancing feminist causes. You've been a big advocate for equal pay. You made T-shirts for the Women's March. And we hear that the belief-driven customer is a growing force. Why is that important to you as a business?
Well, we believe that, you know, luxury brands created, call it 25 years ago or even 15 years ago, really focused on building community and brand loyalty through pride of association sort of centered in status. And what we've learned from our customer and what we believe is that what she wants from a luxury brand today is pride of association through a shared set of values. And we've sort of gotten fully behind that. In the first 2 years, we've learned that it matters to her, that it's a driving force for sort of community and brand loyalty.
And what role can social media play in creating that brand loyalty and community? Florian, I'd like you to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are talking about influencer marketing these days, and I think to make a very important statement first, the most important influencer is always the customer, and I think that's a very important mission for the whole company to acknowledge that and to work on that. I mean, we in Russia have lots of customers with thousands of followers on Instagram or the local networks, so that is actually very important in the first place. Then working with social media in a more structured way with influencers, I think, depends a lot on what messages you want to place. So, for example, working with bigger brands like Nike or Dorothy Perkins, we, for example, use typically influencers, a few influencers with a big reach each. And with other brands, it might work way better. In other campaigns, it might work way better to use a lot more influencers with smaller reach that are more credibly placing a certain message. So I think there's no one-fits-all kind of way to work with social media. It depends a lot on your particular purpose.
Of course, you don't need social media necessarily to build those personal relationships. Cathy, you were telling me that some of your stylists have been working with your clients for years and years and really get to know them. How important is that?
I think it's very important. It builds this great relationship with the client to the company. And we have to say that that has actually created a following within the clients as well. So clients who have been successful with Stitch Fix end up sharing that information on social media. So there are hundreds and thousands of unboxing videos on YouTube that are completely organic, that we didn't have anything to do with, where people are opening the box and giving their comments and asking for feedback from their followers. We see the same thing on Instagram, and there's even a Facebook group that we did not create where Stitch Fix clients are swapping clothes with each other called Buy, Sell, Trade. And so the first 4 years of our business, we didn't really spend any money on marketing or PR. It was all this organic word of mouth growth that we had.
And sort of at the other end of the scale, you kind of have the power of celebrity. Is that still relevant? Josh, you actually have celebrity investors. How important is that to your brand?
You know, it's funny having Nadia out here beforehand, and the last question she addressed was talking about Carly Kloss as a brand ambassador. Carly's an investor in StockX. She's the latest in a long line. Eminem, Mark Wahlberg, Steve Aoki. There's a lot, but it was never the intent. We never set out to say we're going to go get the most famous people involved in the company. It happened super organically by just being part of it. Sneakers, and my co-founder is a guy named Dan Gilbert, who's the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the NBA. So between the NBA and sneakers, there's a lot of just overlap in that world, and that's what got people's attention, and that's what opened the conversation. But it was when people saw what we were doing in the larger business. I mean, this is, for lack of a less cliche way of saying it, like truly revolutionary. Like, this form of commerce doesn't exist yet. This is the first time doing this. And so that bigger idea is why these people got involved. And so they were helping us anyway. Em and Mark were helping us before they were investors, and the greatest value we could give to them at the time was to let them invest, to say, hey, listen, I might write a check for $10,000 to Eminem. It's not really going to move the needle, but to let him invest and be a part, because they were helping us anyway, because they were on board with the bigger idea.
And so it's that organic theme, again, that's so important. Jill, you recently had Meghan Markle wear a pair of your shoes. What kind of effect does that have when you get a real global superstar like that?
I mean, nobody will be surprised to learn that it was ginormous, the impact. And, we particularly, love her wearing our shoes because I think on some level, she's aligned to the values that we talked about earlier that is so important in a fabric of our brand. So, it was... for 30 people in West Hollywood, California, there was a lot of high fives and hugs because we were very proud to have someone like her choose to wear our shoes.
And how are factors like data changing the market? How closely can you assess what your customer wants? And what role does emotion and intuition play as a counterpoint to that? Cathy?
So we really believe in the blend of art and science and humans and machines. So we have over close to 4,000 stylists that work for our company, but they are backed by a lot of machine learning and data science for us to really get to know a client. And what it means is that clients will continue to give us more data when they trust that we're going to use that data well. So if we're listening to them and they're getting a better experience because of that data, they're more willing to share. And so we feel that it's this blend of humanness that comes from that data that creates this great continuous feedback loop with our clients.
And Florian, is that the same for you?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a different business model because we are, to some part, traditional retailer just online, right? And we're planning our collections quite in advance, as unfortunately it's still common in the majority of the fashion industry. And it always starts with the science part, like defining budgets for particular categories and brand combinations, etc., on a actually even like product level. And that is very, very important. And then the art piece that the kind of buyer has to execute a certain, let's say, micro budget, that is as important. So picking the right sneakers, out of the kind of dozens of possibilities a particular brand offers you, is still as important as the science behind it. So it's you need to have really both even in modern fashion. I think replacing everything by technology is wishful thinking.
Well, actually, on our end, it's entirely technology. It's 100% data. In fact, I don't know if everyone can see the same questions that we can see, but the first question that's been up there is, what are the main factors for determination of the resale value of a sneaker? It's just supply and demand. I mean, this is like Econ 101 at its most basic, right? StockX is anonymous. It is just an asset. But demand, which happens somewhere else and comes into that marketplace to create that price, demand is driven here and here and here and everywhere else by the consumers and the brands. And we're just the agnostic marketplace that centralizes it using data, but that demand is brought in by those consumers who want or a certain shoe or watch or handbag and are willing to pay a certain amount for it, right? But we're the data central to bring all that together.
And Nike recently came direct to you to launch the LeBron 14 sneaker. How did that come about? And why was it important to have that exclusive?
Right, so we're a secondary market today, right? So think eBay, we connect buyers and sellers. But the bigger idea is to start working with brands to start releasing products into the market, to literally IPO consumer goods. And we did a big one with Nike last year where they released LeBron's first retro sneaker, which was this sort of big deal. But it was a true IPO. Like, it was a Dutch auction. They cleared at the lowest price, the way an IPO works of stocks. And then what happened afterwards? After the IPO cleared, there were people that wanted to resell this sneaker, and we let them resell it without ever taking possession. So it was literally like day trading in oil futures or commodities or gold. And people were buying and selling sneakers like commodities.
Okay, now we're coming to the end of our time. And before we do wrap up, I just want to have a look at a few more of the questions that have been sent in. What is the state of technology regarding 3D body scanning so that we can virtually try on clothes? Do you believe in such tech? Now, we were talking about this earlier. Who would like to weigh in first?
I mean, fit's a big challenge when you're going online. People don't want to go to the stores, but they don't trust the e-commerce experience for fit. The way we are approaching it is by asking a lot of questions. What types of brands fit you well? Where do you usually have complications with fit? Are your shoulders too narrow or wide? Or are the pants usually long? And that really helps us find the types of brands and labels that work well for each client. We haven't seen 3D technology working just yet. We're keeping an eye on it and investing in it, but I think that it's a little soon.
Yeah, I think I got at least 10 messages from people attending the summit, offering services around it. At least half of them already working with us in some kind of trial, and I think that's pretty much illustrating the situation. We're trying everything we can, but so far the technology isn't kind of mature enough.
Not just the technology, the experience. So it's both. You have to have the technology work, but you have to have it a seamless experience for the clients too to want to use it.
Yeah. And we're solving it right now a lot with just allowing people to order a lot, like up to 10 items in an order, and then they just pay what they keep, right? And so there's a very kind of simple selection at the door, basically, that the client has in our case.
It's worked for us as just an incremental step, which is we can now have 360 and 3D pictures of the product. So it's not yet for trying on, but it's worked really well as just the first step from a, just a static image to a 360 image.
OK, so wrapping up with a look to the future, 3D body scanning aside, what are the innovations that you're most looking forward to? Jill, let's start with you and work our way across.
So I'm very excited by what's happening with messaging in commerce. I think what's being termed conversational commerce. I think it's potentially, I mean, it's obviously happening in Asia, but I think in the US market, I think brands that are sort of embracing asynchronous communication, which has moved on from web chat to messaging, I think is a new channel for delivering great service. And I think it's going to be a meaningful commerce channel, particularly for younger consumers.
Josh.
I just want to say that we have the exact opposite approach.
Which is fine, right?
No,
that's great. That's what we want.
Here's the thing. What companies do really well is figure out exactly what niche to play in, right? And I do think that is where most of commerce goes. And we're trying to be the one place where for these certain products, it does not matter the conversation. It does not matter who the seller is. It does not, like, it's an asset. Like a Yeezy Zebra 350 size 10, like that is an asset, right, in and of itself. And the rest of it is very, very subjective to have these conversations. And so I agree that that's where most of it's going, and that we're intentionally trying to be somewhere else.
Cathy, what about you?
I'd say retail has to focus on personalization. We think of ourselves as a personalization company first and a retail company second. And e-commerce is not going to grow for apparel beyond the 16, 17 micro growth factors that it's getting until you fix the experience of scrolling through lists and lists of apparel pictures and still not feeling like you know how it's going to look on you. And so it's really figuring out the curation and discovery aspects of finding things that are really targeted at you instead of having to make a guess based on a 5-star review of someone who's not at all like you.
And last but not least, Florian.
First of all, I agree with what you just said. I think all of that will probably happen in a way or another. I think beyond that, flexibility in supply chain, I think, is something technology enabled, is something I really believe in will happen. Brands have the majority of their stock not in warehouses that can be used for traditional kind of e-commerce, but in the stores. In many cases, 80–90%. And that is dead stock from a digital point of view. And here we definitely will seek ways to enable brands to bring the stock online from stores.
Well, on that note, thank you very much to our fantastic and very varied panelists. And thank you to the lovely audience. Enjoy the rest of your time at the summit. Thank you. Well done.